I sent you your pictures of cars and trucks just going shoot because the street would not authorize a garage at that. That's crazy. Well, here's the problem. I think a garage might kill people. Oh, it would. You know, and right now they just explode down and it moves my yard. That's killing my. So they're going to submit us about the program, about all the potential options on this particular street, and then do that.
Yep. All right. So we'll switch to that. Thanks for joining us today. First of all, it's a beautiful Saturday morning, and I'm sure y'all have other things you'd like to be doing. So we're gonna be respectful of that and of your time, and try to get through this information as efficiently as we can. But we'll take all the time you want to talk about those issues and what you hope to see in this traffic calming program. As I mentioned, I'm Jeff Hammond. This is David Greaves, and we're consultants working for the Nashville Department of Transportation. I recap that, and I'm talking with a funny thing in my ear because we are simulcasting here, as it were, on WebEx, our online platform. We do have one or two attendees there, so they're listening in as you all this morning. The other benefit to that is it's being recorded. So if you have neighbors that weren't able to be here, that will be posted on our website. They'll be able to watch this meeting just as it happened. So without further ado, we will get started. There's three main things we're going to try and cover this morning. One is just what was mentioned, some background information about the program and how Nawakwa Trail got added into it. The second thing we're going to look at is the proposed plan, very preliminary. I haven't even been on the street yet, but we've kind of laid it out just based on a desktop review of the street, let you give you something to give feedback to us on. And then the last thing, just very briefly, talk about some next steps and set some expectations for what you can expect from us moving forward. So a little bit about the program. You all, I know there's some history here, and you guys have been through iterations of the program. You may be more in tune with it than I am, but it has changed some in the past few months, and so we want to cover that. But the key principle of it has remained the same. It is a residential street program because people have these issues of speeding on their streets, and so we do focus on residential streets. We really emphasize physical solutions. We went through a long period of time there where we really didn't do anything other than signs and pavement markings, and we know that those have maybe some effectiveness, but it's very limited, and especially compared to when we put something down on the street. We're going to talk about speed cushions. We might as well just say it now. That's a big part of what this program does. And I bring it up now because that's an example of those physical measures that we use on the street to slow traffic speeds down. And then it may seem obvious that we focus on speed reduction, but sometimes people engage the program hoping that we will push traffic somewhere else. They'll say, we don't want all these cars on our street. And that might be a byproduct in some occasions where, if you're in a very tight urban network like in East Nashville or a, Germantown or somewhere where it's a very tight grid, that might push traffic. We typically don't see that, and we try to design these programs to avoid pushing traffic. I don't think that's a real issue here because people are going to stay on the Nawakwa Trail because that's where they're going. They're using it to get somewhere, but we just do like to mention that. So we like to keep traffic where it is, but just slow it down, get it to drive responsibly. This is not a program in isolation. We know that doing things on the street, changing the right-of-way, which is what NDOT has purview over, is a good start and might be the most effective thing, but there's other aspects to it. There's education, making sure people are aware of what the speed limit is, giving them some feedback on that sometimes. There's enforcement. We certainly appreciate the police hosting us here this morning. They are a partner in this program, but we know that their time and resources are limited to park a cruiser out there and write tickets. It might be very effective while they're there. That comes and goes, and they just don't have time to be out there as often as any of us might like. So that's the enforcement part of it. We focus on the engineering. We focus on what changes can we affect in the right-of-way to slow traffic down. One of the things we like to cover here is just some rationale for why we do the program. I think it's probably self-evident that, slower speeds is a good thing from a safety standpoint. When it comes to pedestrian activity, it's kind of a two sides of the same coin. We're going to talk about the car part of it, but we're also going to talk about other users of the street, because a lot of people engage the program just because they don't feel comfortable walking down the street in their neighborhood. Some of them don't feel comfortable going out to the mailbox and checking their mail. You know, it's that bad. So this aspect of pedestrian activity is important to us as well. And so we know statistically, if there is a incredibly unfortunate event that there is a car versus vehicle crash that occurs, if that car is going slow enough, that chance of survivability goes way up. So that's just another aspect of wanting to slow speeds down beyond just a quality of life issue. This is a very much, as we alluded to earlier, very much an in-demand program within Metro. As of this last announcement, when you guys were announced as a new project in this cohort of projects, there were 464 streets just like Nawakwa Trail that they had said, come please help us. And you guys are one of them. And so I don't know whether to congratulate you or say I'm sorry, but you rose to the level where you were introduced into the program. And but I do like for you to know that you're not the only ones. There's a lot of people that are kind of facing some of these same issues. We do about 50 projects a year, so that gives you any indication of how responsive we can be. It's just a big backlog of work. This is a snapshot about how this street got into the program. When all of those applications come in, we start making measurements. We measure primarily speeds, but we also do a count, how many cars are going on the street. And then we look at some other things. We look historically at the crashes that have occurred. We look at what's the land use in terms of, like, are there walking destinations? Are there sidewalks and those types of things? And so 70% of the score, the red and the blue slices of the pie here, are that traffic side, the car side of it, how fast traffic is going and how many cars are on the street. The other 30, that's 70%. The other 30% is more on that other user side, the pedestrians, and that's divided up on trip destinations. Are there schools? Are there parks? Are there things to walk to? Urban areas tend to have a little more of an advantage in that way. There's more stuff, and more people to walk to those things. The 10% has to do with, was there a pedestrian crash here? Fortunately, on this street, we didn't have a record of that. You lost points in that category. That's a good thing. We're okay with that. We hope that does not happen. And then the yellow slice of the pie are those non-driver accommodations. If you have sidewalks, your priority goes down. You guys don't have any sidewalks. If you have bike lanes and transit routes and things like that, your priority goes up. We're doing everything we can to encourage safe mobility across all modes. And so all of that rolls into a score. And as was mentioned, I think you guys were number 5 on the list. I will tell you on the speeds, you were number 1 of all the streets. We measured, I think we've got congratulations, you're the winners. In a terrible contest, you're the winners. What we call it the 85th percentile speed. It's just the way we look at it's a statistical way we look at speeds. You were at 45. That was higher than any other street we had in that cohort that got announced. You might there, and undoubtedly there's people going much faster than that. That's the average. It's the 85th percentile, which means 85% of the people are going that speed or lower. There's 15 above that.
It's the median.
I don't know. You may be ahead of me on that. All I know is it's 15% of the traffic on the street is faster than 45. Traffic engineers use that 15% that says, at that point, we have a problem. That kind of defines, there's enough people going fast that it's a problem. So the 15% is above 45. That's what puts you in the program. But, we rate these all relative to each other. So all you need to know is 45 was the fastest one we saw. Yeah. And so you're up there. Your volume is not bad either. We were talking earlier about, it's not low. We're talking about this is really kind of a big dead end. It's sort of a no outlet type of a situation. That's a lot of traffic for that kind of a street. So 2,000 cars a day. And then street width is 21 feet, kind of on the narrower side, kind of a rural type of a street. you guys know you got big yards, you got big setbacks, things are kind of wide open. That a lot of times leads to higher speeds. It's pretty straight, not a lot of hills. So you can understand why people go fast, probably. Just a little bit about the setting here. Nawakwa Trail is from Neely. The section we're looking at is Neely's Bend to the end at Pawnee. That's the little green line that you see there. I like to use this map because this is available online. It's the interactive traffic calming tracker map. And the thing that's important for you, green means we're in progress. You've been accepted in the program. And just so you know, this is no longer a funding issue or anything like that. You're in the program. So there's a ballot we'll talk about, but this is not, anyway, you're in the program. And that's what near you that have applied. So if we'd like to see this, so I'd like to show you this. So if you have neighbors or you think this might be a good candidate, it may be that we already have an application on file. When we have those, we continue to keep those, looking at them in that prioritization to see if they ever rise to the top. You barely catch one right here, but when you see a blue line, and particularly a blue dash line, that means that's a completed project. And that can be helpful if you're curious about speed cushions and what they look like and feel like. You can find your most close by project and go drive on those. So this, if you go to I'll give you a QR code at the end. If you go to or you can just Google the Metro Traffic Calming website, you can find this map here, and you can look all over Davidson County. On Hickory, he has the closest. All right, so a little bit about the tools that we use within the program. This is not necessarily specific to this project, but just kind of as we think about the common things that we use. We mentioned these speed cushions. You probably has everybody encountered these somewhere, some point in Davidson County? We're beginning to roll out a lot of them, and so if you haven't, again, you can go to that map and find your closest ones, or get in touch with us. We can tell you where you can go drive on some. The nice thing about the product that we use is it's what we use all over the county now. It's one vendor we have a contract with, and we like that for a couple reasons. We know how they perform. We know we can get them. We're not dependent on a contractor to go out there and form it and make it just right. So the way they drive on street X is the way they're going to feel on street Y, and they hold up well. They all look the same. So anyway, what we're using in other places is what we would have on this project. We call them cushions because they come in these little individual sections. I guess they look like a little pillow, sort of. And those gaps in between them become important because that allows larger wheelbase vehicles like ambulances, fire trucks, those emergency responders, that we're okay if they speed a little bit. They're trying to get somewhere quickly and have an important job to do, and so we want to minimize the impact on those vehicles. And so that's a big part about the gap in between. So that's a pretty standard tool that we use. I mean, probably north of 95% we're using these speed cushions with a gap in the middle on the projects. We can configure them different ways. You see a 2-set configuration here, 3-set in the bottom right. Sometimes there's a 3-set plus we might use a little delineator on the other side of it. Different tools, the main point there is we just don't want people driving around them. We want people to have to encounter that. Now, some people will put one wheel here, but the other wheel is going to hit that. It kind of does you no good. I mean, you can't get around them if we do our job right. And so that's the main idea about whether we use 2, whether we use 3.
How does that compare to motorcycles? Because we have a lot of motorcycles that speed up and down.
That's one of the drawbacks. The question was motorcycles, and yeah, they can shoot right to them. I mean, there's no. We won't use those. You're not going to see that in our toolkit, but we can make a note of that. But yeah, that comes up occasionally, and if that's something that we need to relook at that and think about on this project specifically, you see a lot of motorcycles. Okay. Yeah.
And it's not, and I drive motorbike.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me show you on the next tool something that may help a little bit with that. So just one more thing on this. I was talking about the other aspect of configuration is size. We can use different sizes. They're all 6 feet wide. That would be this dimension in the direction that the car's going. But the length of them we can vary, and that becomes important so we can kind of design in the speed we want people to drive. The shorter they are, the 7-foot ones, the more aggressive they are. Those feel like, you know, it really jars you. It's still the same height. They're only 3 inches tall, but just because it's shorter, it's more aggressive. 10.5 is kind of our standard in Metro right now. We've gone to a lot more of these because a lot of the county is more suburban. You know, we use those 7-foot ones in tight urban areas where there's parking and there's, you know, people all over the place and all that. And we're really trying to get down to 15 miles an hour or so. 10.5, we've got good experience that it puts traffic right at, as an average, right at about 25 miles an hour over the length of the street. And we can go a little more gradual, a 14-footer, where if we got a lot of traffic or it's more like a collector street, we've begun using some of those. So it's just about comfort and aggressiveness and what speed we're trying to reach in our application. We do use signs at most spots, not all of them, but anyhow. So the other tool that we have that might would affect motorcycles more would be a continuous speed table. Same material, same manufacturer, same kind of look and feel. It just doesn't have those gaps in between it. It may make sense on a street like this. We use them occasionally for issues like that. You know, and if it's not on a direct route to any place or anything, I think that emergency vehicle consideration is really the only thing that we would want to think about.
Would you consider something like this before a stop sign? In other words, where traffic would be slowing anyways, like an emergency vehicle, and then it wouldn't impede an emergency vehicle as much as putting it someplace on a straightaway.
On a straightaway. It's a good thought. I'll tell you, we typically keep all of these away from a stop sign with the philosophy that traffic is slowing and stopping anyway. I'll talk a little about how we lay these out, and I don't think you have any stop signs, do you? Just at the ends, right? Oh, on the side street. Yes, right. Yeah, that's right. You don't need that. That's the ultimate speed control is the Cumberland River. Okay. So yeah, that's the only change there. Anyway, so that may be a tool, and we'll look at that as well. Just a little information on some of the performance feedback we've gotten from these. This is you know, as engineers, we always want more data. We never have enough data. We love it, and so it continues to come in. But we're at about an average of 9 mile an hour speed reduction. But it really depends on what street, what it was signed before, what length of speed cushion was used, and all of that kind of stuff. These were the 7-footers. So anyhow, we are seeing and we'll expect to see speed reduction with these. Another tool we have in our toolbox, and this gets back to some of that educational component that we talked about, is feedback signs. You may have seen these. We're putting more of these out as well. They do what they say. I mean, you put them up, they tell people how fast they're going. I think we're still looking at the effectiveness. This shows that 6-7 miles an hour. I mean, maybe you know, it's hard to say because each individual sign is different. Some of them are on hills, some of them are not. So I think the response to these is probably much different, you know, much more varied than it is for speed cushions. So we are seeing some. The other thing you have about this is effectiveness over time. The speed cushions kind of slow traffic. I don't care if they've been there 2 months or 10 years, they still work the same. These, as time passes, do people get used to them? Does it kind of lose its effectiveness? We're still looking at that.
Problem we have on the walk through, speeding is 30.
Yeah.
Just because you got a sign of 30, don't mean that you got to hang on.
That's right.
If you go down there right now, look at the black mark from my house, so they turn around, back down towards the river.
Yeah.
Challenge.
Yeah, so.
He's not going to do 30 miles an hour.
Right. So we know signs have a pretty limited effectiveness because that's all we're doing is signing it. But
Does signs include another stop sign?
good questions. Stop signs are not handled through this program, and you can request them. I'll show you how to request them here in just a second because we get that question a lot. But no, signs are considered a traffic control device, just like a traffic signal. And there's actually a big engineering standard manual that Metro uses that says you're not to use stop signs as speed control. It's a regulatory traffic control device. When it says stop, it means stop. And if we just put a stop sign at every place, again, it kind of loses its effectiveness over time. So yes, stop signs are not something that we use in the program. Those, by the way, can also collect data, which is nice for us because then we can kind of see, how traffic is responding over time. Another thing we do sometimes is markings, narrowing. If we can visually narrow the street, that will have an impact sometimes. This street's already pretty narrow, though. Is there a center line? No. Yeah. No. Well, people have mixed thoughts on that. So if they don't have a center line, people often say, can we have a center line? And if you don't, if you've got one, people say, I think if we took it off, traffic would go slower. We kind of fall in the camp of, if it doesn't have one, we typically don't introduce one. I think that conveys the message this is more of a through road and more of a, like a collector. So we typically leave them without, but we can put edge lines and just try to kind of define that edge of the road and bring it in if it makes sense. I don't know if it does yet or not. If you're 20 or 21 miles an hour, that's pretty narrow, and it probably already feels fairly narrow.
The center line too, is there a certain amount of traffic you would want? Like, it doesn't have to be 3,000 vehicles or higher?
No, but there is a warrant that says if you have 3,000 or whatever the number is, then you should have a center line. Yeah, so it's more of a warrant that you need to put one and not so. But if you can put one wherever you want to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, I think it makes sense, and it just kind of conveys the message that it is a higher volume street, and I don't know, but there's two camps on that. Mm-hmm.
Just because of the wide space there, don't mean you're supposed to be getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, access can be a big part of that. Another tool that we have, and we use it very, very sparingly, are traffic circles. Again, these are more in dense neighborhoods, but something we can put, especially if we're trying to calm two different cross streets, and you put one of these in it and make traffic go around it. We've used it on occasionally. There's some out in Bellevue. There's some out toward Haywood Lane, but we're not using them very often. You got to have a lot of pavement. Again, with a 20-foot wide road, I don't think this is going to make sense. You got to, but some of these, you're right. You don't have a lot of volumes on those, yeah. And then again, another more of an urban type thing are bulb outs, chicanes. Bulb outs, again, are really at intersections where you might have a lot of pavement and people are kind of swinging real fast around the corner. We can tighten that, try to slow that down. Chicanes are kind of like if you were in just say Germantown, where you've got a lot of cars parked on the street. We've been in these little neighborhoods where you got to have to yield for a car to get by. One thing it may feel crowded and congested, but one thing those neighborhoods don't have typically is high speeds. And so this kind of replicates that aspect of sort of zigzagging and yielding to oncoming traffic. There's one street I can think of that has these in Metro. We use it very sparingly also.
It's a traffic circle. There is granite, and it's in between a very long stretch of road, which is really where they're high speed. So if we had one there, that certainly would
I live right there at the top of the hill.
Yeah, I want to bring up the map, and I want y'all to point those out to make sure we are capturing that in the design.
My question, specifically put them at certain
We can.
spots.
Yeah, we can. We can to a point. I'll
Okay.
show you what I mean. So we mentioned stop signs a second ago. I just want to show you this so you'll know. That's not to say it's not a good idea or something that shouldn't be looked at, but to do that, the best way to do it is go to Hub Nashville. If you're not familiar with that, it's hub.nashville.gov, or you can call 311, talk to somebody. And it's a great clearinghouse for all things service in Davidson County. And that's not just NDOT, it's not just transportation issues. You can access just about every department and their most common requests for stuff. That's a great place to go. You log it in, you get an email, so there's some tracking of that happens. Sometimes people say, can we have a sidewalk as part of the project? Y'all can guess the answer to that. They're just very expensive. Again, we would love to build sidewalks everywhere. Anna Dearman is our walking and biking manager. But again, those types of requests can still go into the hub and probably should. And then beautification is J.D. Lane there. So about this street, let's look at this. And so this slide is showing you right now a kind of a rough approximation of what we're thinking as far as a layout. This is a fairly long project. It's a straight street. I don't think there's a lot of hills vertical. I mean, it's pretty flat. Yeah. The only thing about hills is that can limit us is we don't like to put speed cushions or anything raised on the slope at 6%, and we absolutely don't go over 8%. So I don't think there's anything that steep here. We'll take a look at that, but I think you're probably flatter than that.
She lives just one. My driveway is at Brown, and the problem that I have is coming in and out. People coming from the river back to the road that you can't see. You have to stop and wait to make sure nobody's coming out on the back side.
Gotcha.
So, and then to get out of her driveway, because it's so close to the top of the hill, you have to sit and wait to make sure nobody's coming out the bottom of the thing.
Where is the crest of the hill? This is Branham right here. This is, I guess, is your house.
Yeah.
Is it this? This is Bailey's
okay.
Bend.
Okay, we try to back up there to go between. Okay, the driveway going in there is like that.
Yeah.
So we just over to the right a little bit.
So the crest of the hill's there.
Back a little bit.
Okay, so it's right at Branham, just a little bit on the river.
It's Brown, but like I said, the telephone post right there is my driveway, and like I say, it's blind for people coming from the river, and I got a grass service, and I've had people, I think I had one patient the other day, turning into my driveway, that they'll pass me,
Yeah.
and can't see what's coming up the hill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's bad.
And so
I see what
I
you're
would
saying.
love to have preferably one on both sides of the drive to slow them down in case, if you're turning in the driveway and you're not paying attention, somebody's coming up the hill.
Yeah.
He get right on the side of the car.
That's good feedback and exactly what we need out of a meeting like this. And so we just sort of put them in based on spacing. There's a couple of things that kind of dictate where we can put them and can't put them. Other than that, we have some ability to do that. So the first thing we look at is spacing. So we're shooting for a 400 to 600 foot spacing in between each of those. So our experience is if we do that, it's not obnoxious to people that live on the street and have to drive it every day. We're very cognizant. You guys have to drive this every day. And at the same time, it's not so far apart that people are just going to speed up, in between them.
That's just like what I'm talking about there. It's not just me, but there's several houses down Brown there that they got to come up to the stop sign, and they can't hardly get out without, they've got to be really careful. Somebody's going to cross that hill.
Yeah.
Line.
See, and so we have to consider things like if someone's turning left out of Branham, we can't put a set of speed cushions that immediately hit. They have to slow down. They kind of need to get on out there and get up to speed. Yeah.
But I think it's on down for perhaps.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely take a look at that, and our objective here is to get the average car. You know, typically people to just drive this street at about 25, 27 miles an hour. We want to space them. So what that means is we typically don't put something right at the spot that says, we know we have a problem here, therefore we're going to like sign it and do all this stuff concentrated. What we want to do is just have consistent speed, and then that typically takes care of a lot of those issues like that.
If you are driving at 25, 27, you're not going to feel a jar. In other words,
I wouldn't say that.
You will be good to go, and you're not going to feel impeded or delayed or anything like that.
Well, I wouldn't say you're not going to feel it. It's not going to be a jar. I wouldn't say.
It's not going to say, gosh darn it. Yeah.
What we see, and I'm going to tell you as honestly as I can, our best, from my perspective, our best example is in West Nashville. It's even a little more, you're a little more rural than the one I'm going to talk about. It's called street called Breslin. And it's about the same width. It's got more houses on it than this one does, but they're set back. I mean, and we put the 10.5-foot cushions, and we went out and did some travel time measurements where we actually just followed cars. Let's just see how people drive over the length of this. Your street's about twice as long, but that was about 3/4 of a mile. So it was a pretty good length of street. And you still see people, they go over the speed cushions, and at the point of the speed cushion, they may be going 10 miles an hour, 12, 15 miles an hour, and then they accelerate, as it's natural to do, before they start slowing down for the next one. Over the length of that, it's about 25 miles an hour. But are you going to see a little bit of slowdown right at the speed cushion? Yeah, I think you do. For most cars do. That's what we saw.
Sure, a lot better than the 50, 55.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah. For those of you who live on the street that drive it all the time, I think you're going to realize that if you just kind of do consistently, you're going to get to where you're going in about 25 miles an hour on average. Will that feel onerous to some people? I don't know, but I mean that's what it is.
This is what I'm hearing from my other constituents that aren't on Nawakwa. Like you see that Pawnee Trail, it curves around to another Pawnee Trail, and in that Pawnee Trail, those folks are in a rural road just like Nawakwa, and that connects to another rural road, Hudson, which is parallel to Nawakwa, and all of those folks are worried that if we put cushions, and especially this, because I was thinking 2 or 3, now I see 8.
Yeah,
right?
8 cents.
That they're worried that it's going to just redirect the speed.
Push them to Hudson.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. They be taking a 5-minute diversion there to save a minute.
It's not, I don't know if it's to save a minute, it's just to keep going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be the same first. They turn it off right after your house.
Yeah.
To run behind the school, so they hit the school zone.
Yeah.
And then they go completely longer, like they do twice as long.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to run out of the school zone. It's crazy.
Well, if that's the case, if it's so that they can keep going faster, I mean, is that true that even if we put 2 sets, wouldn't they still do that, or not? I mean, I don't know.
You can't get there from here. There are no back roads. There's no other way. If you don't do Hudson or Nawakwa, you don't know where to go. You are it's a loop, and that's it. You can't keep going. So Hudson might be getting some of these. I mean that would be my guess is what would happen if they do that. Then Hudson will be coming to you and saying.
And Hudson just comes in south on me, like it's closer down to the on the peninsula.
Mohawk right there. If you turn on Mohawk, it comes over to Pawnee, and then it turns right into you don't have to Hudson, wait around to make the road back out.
Well, unfortunately, this is what we're looking at as kind of our scope. Hudson can, maybe they should apply. I hate to put it that way because you don't want to create a problem. I see. Yeah.
The problem in the past is that when we moved down here, there was no subsidy. Past, no, I mean, you have this down there on, on Coley and on Colony down there, there was not that much down there. Well, they gone in there and saw about the farmland down in there, and built all these houses down in there. So then the next for them is Nawakwa. That's the reason why you got over 2,000 cars a day in and out. And then if that pushes on the Hudson, then Hudson's got to do their own thing. Yeah. I'm sorry, but, you know, one some kind, you know, to solve one problem might create another problem.
And we might be looking at some way at a position for stop signs to walk and maybe there. No, on
An always stop.
right.
Now, that gets somebody killed.
Yeah, and because once all those houses get built, you know, we're gonna be coming in and saying, we got a problem. Oh, yeah, on the top. Yeah. No, the other way, down the river. Well, didn't they sell off? No. Oh, that's right, you petitioned. Thank you, never mind. But what's this? I still think we need a stop sign there, but, yeah, okay. I'm willing to divert the traffic to Hudson, but I don't think, do you ever think that they would do that? That the 60 mile an hour would.
It wouldn't be rational, but they may do it just for kicks. Like if they want to just go fast,
Well, the people that race.
it's a good thought. I mean, it might. Yeah.
The people that race, they typically, they go down to Hudson anyway at night. So there's not a lot of houses on that, like past a certain.
No,
It's a lot of farmland. Right. It's still not a certified racetrack.
Yeah.
It's safe to say, yeah. Well, let me mention one other aspect too that it came up earlier. You're signed right now at 30.
Right.
I think that may be changing soon. I know at the last Traffic and Parking Commission, they voted to approve a resolution that about 2 or 3 years ago, all of the urban services district went down to 25 as the default speed limit, and like the whole county changed kind of overnight. This is well, it was urban services district. I assume y'all are general. Yeah. Yeah, just recently, it's working through council now. I think y'all will see it soon if you haven't already. There's a proposal to take all of the county down to 25. That would make Nawakwa become 25, kind of without, essentially, yeah.
But, like I say, if you put something there.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't.
25, don't make somebody want 100.
Oh, I know. But Hudson would be the same way. Any of these little streets that are not collectors, Neely's Bend won't change. It's a collector, I feel pretty sure. But some of these other ones would automatically go to 25. I hear you. It may not change anything, but.
Yeah.
We went to 40 and 35.
Yeah, because previously it was 40 and people were going down State Route 45 at 35 and speeding up to get onto Neely's Bend.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The neighborhood.
Yeah.
So they brought it down to 35 and that's it.
Yeah, I think that would stay, but. Let me get back to how we. So one big aspect is the spacing in between them. That's why we got 8 sets. We can go less than that. Probably don't need to go more than that. But if you feel like that's too many, we can look at that. It's just going to lengthen the spacing. The other things we look at are hills, like we mentioned, curves. You don't have any curves, so that's okay. And then driveways. Again, that one's not that important out here. We got plenty of space. I think you guys have bigger frontages. There's not that many driveways to avoid. In urban neighborhoods, that can become a real obstacle. But we don't put anything. About 15 feet is as close as we want to put to somebody's driveway. And intersections, like we talked about, we don't want anything right at Branham or any of the intersections there that's going to complicate that.
About the spacing of the south side of Neely's Bend, on the far left there,
Mm-hmm.
that first one, to the right, would that, be far enough away from the church parking lot to qualify? Okay.
Good question. Yeah, we typically, a lot of these streets like this, especially they come off of more of a commercial corridor, the first couple properties are churches or their businesses or their warehouse or something. So we always, we really try to introduce this where the houses start, to kind of communicate you're not entering into the neighborhood, slow down. So yeah, we would put it back beyond the church parking lot or something like that.
If there were an option for one of those speed limit 25, you're saying if it
As you come
would
in?
be coming, so that it would be approaching Neely's Bend, that might have some small impact right before you get to the church, right before they jump themselves into my yard.
It might. The only time we really double up treatments like that, like this, along with the speed cushions, are a lot of times we're places where we might have a long gap in speed cushions because of a hill or something, and that's a lot of times a good spot to put one of those feedback signs because we can't do anything else. So we don't typically double up. I think when people see that speed cushion sign and then obviously the thing itself, it is slowing down. I mean.
Please note there's no existing traffic signal anywhere.
Yeah, right. Right. No.
So while we're on this page, Bill, would you, if we were to number them from left to right, 1 through 8, would you say numbers 3 and 4 were the ones you were wanting?
4 and 5.
Number 4 and 5?
I thought you were saying on either side of Brandon. 3 and 4. Yeah.
3 and 4.
Because what I was wondering, and I didn't want to speed up traffic by any means, I wanted to slow down traffic, but just for the sheer numbers, I was wondering if 2 and 6 and maybe even 8 are those necessary?
Yes. Because I live right at 2.
You think even with the 1 and the 5, you still need that 2? I mean, the 1 and the 3.
Yeah, because it's pretty flat out there.
Yeah.
People.
And if you put it on 5, I mean, it still would be flat, and it's very safe, just running for a company, and then another one's coming. And what is the distance?
Those are about 550 feet, I want to say.
The only way that I can look at this, but I need to have you walk the road with me. And I can show you that.
Yes, sir.
She lives the Brown there, she's probably right there where number 3 is at.
Okay.
That's her house.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Then there's Brown and
Right. Everybody claim one.
number 4 there is right at Dave's house. And the ride, you can't see the height of the ride right there. And I say, when you come up to my driveway there at Brown, you have to slow down and watch cars coming off the hill from the river because they go down into a dip and then they get blind. You can't, they can't see me, I can't see them until they start seeing a cop of the car.
So what do you think about number 7 and 8? Like, you think those are both necessary? The reason I'm asking just to throw it out there is because 8 is right in the middle of all these streets, right? So they just come off of the street and then another street is coming out too. Are they already speeding there? Do we need it at that point? Yeah. They may not be coming out at that time. Yeah, they're going to the last one, they're gonna hit it.
I have a question about your blind spot. What about mirrors? Would it help at all for that, being able to see over that line, coming out of your driveway or Brandon Drive?
Or her driveway.
Do y'all do this? Well, I don't know if you do it, what lights that have the sensors on that can tell you if a car is coming over the hill? Because that's where I grew up. We had that where I grew up in Georgia, and it's still there.
Still works?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a sensor there that has a little, or a system that you can get, and you can configure them, I guess, 3 different ways. You can have the stop sign flash when it senses a car coming. You can have the main line flash when it senses a car come up to the stop sign, or you can have both. You can, but
For the blind hill.
yeah. Oh, just a static flasher?
No, just for, if it says the car coming over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what it would do is there would be a radar down here. It would pick up, and then that would trigger the sensor to flash.
That seems like it would be very helpful.
Metro that I know of has not, I don't know where one exists. I know they do exist. I know those systems, you can buy them from manufacturers. They sell them that way. We've spec'd them on jobs, but I've never seen an installation of it. Last one we spec'd was out in Dixon. I'm not sure if they moved ahead with it or not, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and they exist. Yeah.
Taking the time to worry about the, they're getting too many. If you decided to have instead of 8, 6, it wouldn't mean that they would just come out. It means that the other would be respaced.
That's right.
Yeah, so that it would be a little longer in between ones.
Yeah.
I understand that. So to your point, it may seem like there's quite a number of them, but if you took it down to 6, you eliminated 2, it just kind of.
Yeah, maybe 100 feet, a little bit less.
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes a little bit longer in between.
What's the distance of the one going from Gibson?
I don't know offhand. We could look.
But you made this recommendation based on the traffic.
It's our best practice, but you know, different streets. You know, it makes it. You do. I think it is important to look at trying to guess what traffic might do. You guys kind of know the characteristics. If people are just joyriding and their motorcycles just running around, it may make sense to spread them out. You know, just it would slow traffic on this street, maybe not have much effect. You know, I don't know, but I think the ones on Breslin that I referenced earlier might be a little further apart. Those may be in the 700-foot range, something like that. But we can look at that and kind of bring that back.
The other kind of slowing thing that you mentioned the little side pole that we see a number of places. Bill, do you think that would help
Well, you got to sit a power on Gibson over there, and then there in line, and everyone's got to go down through there.
Oh, yeah.
They do get knocked down a lot.
Oh, yeah.
They get hit a lot.
Right, I mean, they're on Gibson over, and if you going down through there, you try to cheat.
Yeah, and made obviously to bounce back up, but they don't always bounce back up. After a while, they kind of put. Yeah, and on this program especially, you know, like I mentioned, we really use those on the sides to kind of keep people from driving around. I really don't think there's much opportunity. Now, y'all might tell me if we put these, if there's any place that there's really not a ditch and it's almost like a little gravel shoulder, people will leave the road to drive around them. I mean, we know that. So they do it all the time. So we sometimes we'll use those steel signs in that case to put them there. You know, they don't typically run through a sign, but
Are there signs that say speed calming? Okay, so
yeah, that will be the first thing you see coming from a direction. You would see speed cushions ahead, and then we typically, if there's not another side street, we typically don't sign every one until you hit a side street. Then we would put another sign here, and same way going that direction. So you'll see a few signs down through here.
I mean, you're not going to find someone, to be quite honest, that lives on and is going right and doesn't already know the speed limit because they live there and they come down the other side.
I know.
So you probably should because that's the sign that it's at the policy.
It's kind of policy. Yeah, it is. I agree with you, and it is. Yeah.
The only thing I just want to press slow on ground. I mean, on the walk trail.
Yeah.
yeah.
You slow the walk trail, you stop, you won't slow it down brown or always.
Yeah, and I
When you get the palmy down there, you can't speed because it's not very deep away.
And just to be, completely transparent with you guys, we had Rio Vista approved, and they were in the middle of voting when a pedestrian was hit and killed on Rio Vista. So it's super serious. We have people walking on the walker, so it's really great that we have this because I truly think it'll save lives.
Right.
And you never know, but as long as we get installed before we lose the life, then we know.
Yeah, I've been run off into the ditch.
don't, they don't walk facing traffic, and they were black, they were facing traffic. And I go, are you insane? Is your mother ever?
I go down and if I'm on the wrong side of the road, I'll bolt on and
Well, they were walking their phones. They were walking like this.
No.
Oh.
Well, so it sounds like one of the things we may look at is let's take one set out, two sets out, see what that spacing looks like, and go from there.
I just want one as close to, just me personally, this is just totally personal, as close as possible to the stop sign at Nawakwa, at the corner of Nawakwa and Neely's Bend.
Okay.
Because they just come screaming up there.
Turning off of Neely's Bend into Nawakwa. Yeah. Okay. We'll see.
And turning off the walkers, it's been,
Oh,
they
no.
try not to stop.
Yeah.
I always try to
Okay.
break when I'm approaching the walker because someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
Okay.
to just,
there again, you got the same problem with stop signs. You got in my driveway. You got a right that goes coming out of the bend.
yep.
And if you're not sitting there paying attention, you go pull out and somebody's flying across the field.
Okay. Well, that's good feedback. We'll take a look at that. Maybe cheat one up a little closer to the stop sign than what we normally do.
Yeah.
Okay. If you got other things, we cannot be done with that. Happy to go back to it, but let me just cover a little more information here on process. We're here at meeting 1. We do just again policy. We do 2 meetings, so we will be back to you. If y'all want to do it in person, if you want to do it online, we can do it however you want to. In between that's meeting 2 here. In between, what we typically do is we'll go in, we'll make the site visit, we'll walk it, we'll take a look at all these things and say, these hills are fine, we can work around them, and then we'll come back with a little bit more refined. It won't look a lot different, but it'll look, it'll take into consideration what you have told us. After meeting 2, if we've got consensus and y'all say, yep, looks good, we're ready to go, we start the online ballot process. We'll talk more about that in meeting 2. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but just so you know, there is a ballot process. So when I say this is a funded project, it's going to happen, that is pending your street's feedback on that. We do a formal vote essentially, and everyone who lives on, or who owns property on the street will vote for it, whether they like it or whether they don't. And then assuming it passes, we go to construction after that.
6 or 7 was online. That the rest of the place down there, they will space, they won't vote that. It's not going to happen.
Again, only Nawakwa is voting.
That's what I'm talking about.
No Hawkins County Trail or nothing. So I think you got it.
But it's a possibility. I mean, so what happens if it does not pass? If we come back and we try to build sort of a lesser impact project, which means we take out the speed cushions. We might put those feedback signs or some striping or something like that.
Honestly, I've been fighting 28. This has been a problem for 28.
Here's the thing.
Just now getting something done. Because, and I hate to go this far and nothing gets done.
I understand. Yeah.
Well, remember, most people on Nawakwa want.
Yeah, they do. A lot of my neighbors do.
The vast majority of people, and once they see that this is being offered, and if we get out the word that don't let the speeders have it.
Yeah.
Speak up.
And the speeders are not the residents on the walk.
No, they're not.
They're
By the time it gets to this level in the process, our pass rate, David, you may know, it's something like 80% of all the projects that we put to ballot. I mean, by and large, they're passing. A lot of them with a big margin. So.
And if you're looking for it, you're going to pay attention. If you're not looking for it, you might not notice. And I know you guys are always paying attention. We'll get one as well. Sudani was been raised at the intersection of Nawakwa.
If your property abuts, then if you're on the corner, then yes.
David is supposed to get it too.
Just for this to be effective, it has to be the table and not the cushion.
Okay.
They're not going to, the motorcyclists are not going to.
Is everybody good with that? You want to look at the tables and not the,
Maybe,
I can't.
Can you do some with and some without?
That's an interesting thought. Okay. Yeah, I sure will. I'm going to show you a picture. So if you're listening online, the question was, are we settling on tables or cushions? So here's the table, and the big thing to notice is it's one solid piece that goes all the way across. The cushions have those gaps, and of course that lets motorcycles go through pretty much at will. So I don't have the authority to say, yeah, we'll do that, but I can take it back to NDOT and our project manager and say, hey,
If you made a couple of.
that's an interesting, yeah, I like that. That's yeah. Well, I think for most traffic cars, my experience is a lot of times the loud and fast cars are the little ones. So this is has more of an impact on those. But yeah, cars are going to respond to either one of them. It's just that I would say that one's going to be more effective if you've got an appreciable amount of motorcycle traffic.
Well, you don't deal with the motorcycle, any stuff that.
Yeah, right.
I think, you can't fix the,
And yeah, can we talk about timing as the next plan and then
We can. So I like that aspect of mix and match. Kind of include some of these at a couple of them, but not all of them, and then that way, yeah. I think that's a good plan. Well.
it should be all if they want them all to be good.
Yeah, but then,
They want them all.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then that city is emergency vehicle, and, keeping them all that, but I have my heart attack. Well, that's like a big company, I've never, but I never having my heart attack.
that one way, it's pretty bumpy, man. Every little pothole is terrible.
When you're having your heart attack, you think, why did I ever talk about speed tables? I should have never mentioned that. So a little bit about the time frame. We're at meeting 1. I can't tell you when meeting 2 will happen. It won't take us very long. I would say probably 3 or 4 weeks to get the design done, and then we would schedule meeting 2. Everything beyond that, I can tell you pretty clearly time frame, but there's a little bit of a, just when y'all want to get back together, how do we do it? So that's meeting 2. After meeting 2, if we're ready to go to ballot, we'll tell you at that meeting, give us 2 weeks, and then we'll send the ballots out. That ballot period stays open for 6 weeks. If it passes, we order the materials. That's, oh shoot, I don't have those slides on here, but it's about 2 months. It's about 8 to 10 weeks to get the materials. Once the materials come in, then we schedule it for a contractor. That's probably another 8 to 10 weeks. So we're in the winter time. Yeah, we're in the winter time. I don't want you to think we're going to be out here in the next 2 months and you'll see these. So that's important that you know that. We got some work to do still. So if you've got neighbors that are concerned about it and they want to get in touch with us, we got time. That's what this is about. This is really the first meeting and chance to talk about it.
When you go out to design layout, if it's possible to put some kind of mark so that we will know when we drive down that this is where you have proposed putting.
We can. Sure, we can put paint on the road. It's not, yeah, we can. We definitely can. And when we do the design plans, it's to that level. So David does most of these design plans. And so we'll go out there and we'll do the field work and we'll say, it'll say, this speed cushion is going to be 34 feet from the driveway at 1717 Nawakwa Trail, whatever your address is. So you should be able to go out there and see where exactly we're talking. The design plans are to that detail. But yeah, we can absolutely go as we're doing that. We could paint it. We can paint it. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm driving
Uh-huh.
And I think most people, you say, what is that mark for? You know, it will bring awareness that something is coming.
Oh, we could put, I'm saying, just at 9 signs at every.
The important thing is it says Tanya Hancock on it. Or, yeah, y'all were talking about the Adopt a Speed Cushion program. Everybody can have their name on the location. Like they name bridges after police officers. Yeah.
They already put their track.
If you got any other great ideas like those, feel free to send those to us. I'm Jeff Hammond. I'm the bottom one. Gil Thomas is our Metro program manager. He's really great and responsive, so feel free to email Councilwoman. You've probably heard from Gil. Yes, and so that's the next thing. That goes straight to the Metro, or you can just Google Metro Traffic Calming. That's the way I normally do it, but that'll get you to TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. They've really revamped the site. Gil's done a great job, and his team putting a lot of tools on there. All of these this meeting will be posted at the on that site. There's a whole Metro YouTube channel, and it'll go there as well. You can get to it from here. The traffic calming tracker map is on there. All the design plans are on there. So there's a lot of information there. Sure. Yeah, my email is not on there. Gil's may or may not be. No, that's all right. Feel free to send it. Any other questions or comments? That's all I have. We made it through all of them.
Really informative, and
I was thinking about some of those signs, and I was like, no, I don't know.
Yeah, we quit doing the signs, by themselves. Probably 2. No, it's longer than that. I'd say about 2018. We really started getting back into speed cushions, but really over the past probably 2 years, it's kind of become systematic like this. We're still kind of rolling them out. The backlog is still there, but they're installing, I don't know, maybe a project a week.
So we saw the citizen with 8 sections, considering maybe 6 or 8, depending on safety and need. Did anyone give you feedback? If you need feedback on if anyone wants to have the new speed limit signs have the flashing with that, what they're actually reading?
We talked about it. What we said was we typically don't double up those types of treatments. They're not to say you can't, but what you're going to end up seeing if we do it well is the feedback sign is going to say, depending on where you put it, it's going to say 15 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour or 31 miles an hour, which is great, but it's, because they're going to be going slow over the length of the project, it may not be as effective. Yeah.
We're going to put one of them on husbands and they'll just start racing to see what the feedback says.
Yeah. My son tries to run and see if it'll log him how fast he can run towards the sign. For lawnmower.
Interestingly, here on Houston, we're going to have both cushions and doubling up system radar signs. And we had to take into account this pre-painted here, and they have entrances on Henderson and they take into account the school and where their entrances are, but they also have hills here on this road. And so it's going to be when you're coming off of Gallatin, and then also when you're coming off of Hyatt on the Henderson, that those lights are good to warn them about, hey, this is what you're doing, and this is like this, and then it's leaves.
Gil, David, do we have any other feedback from the online meeting that we need to read in? He has signed off. All right, good for him. He's enjoying the day.
everybody, petition or this year.
That would be for next year.
Or next year.
Yeah, this year still isn't.
Yeah, we did.
I'm telling you, ice cream, so.
Yeah, I've often asked the NDOT director about for the folks to drive on the wrong side of the road to usually pass people.
Those one-way tire puncture things, yeah. Yeah, that probably wouldn't, yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and y'all are welcome to stay. And that you know, we always like, that's a good thing. More and more of these meetings are going virtual, but I really appreciate the fact when neighbors want to get together and you see each other and maybe in you know, a situation you don't normally get to. So thanks for attending and for your interest in this project and program. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. Sorry to bring you guys on Saturday.
No.